This is a Relay Project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
You know, by-elections aren't always spotlighted like they probably should be. By-elections can play a big role in the administration of democracy, right? We've looked to federal by-elections in past to give us a sense about a government's popularity. You remember when the Liberals lost that long-held riding in downtown Toronto, that by-election before the federal election, and how many times did guests on this show look at it as a canary in a coal mine, so to speak, the harbinger of things to come for the then Justin Trudeau Liberals. Of course, at provincial and municipal levels, we look at those by-elections the same way. We get a sense of how the electorate, not typically just in the riding that's being focused on, but the electorate writ large is perceiving the performance of a government and perhaps the rise of an opposition power. But an upcoming by-election in the Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot has the eyes of the country, without hyperbole, because the leader of the official opposition, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada for now, Pierre Poilievre, till he wins a seat in the House of Commons, is fighting for his political survival. He's running against an independent who calls that riding home. She doesn't have an address in Ottawa. As a matter of fact, she's a retired member of the Canadian Forces. She's a rancher, and she's running as an independent. Take a second to meet Bonnie Critchley.
When something breaks out here, you don't wait around for someone else to fix it. You roll up your sleeves and get it done. That's always what I've done in the forces, on the farm, and now in this by-election. Battle River Crowfoot needs a change. I'm Bonnie Critchley, and I'm not here for a photo op. I'm here to work for you.
Our home, our riding. Let's do this together.
That's the reel released by the team representing Bonnie Critchley, the independent candidate, this upcoming by-election in Battle River Crowfoot. She has made the trip in from Toefield, Alberta, early on this morning to join us in the Real Talk studio in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Welcome to the show, Bonnie.
Morning. How's it going?
It's very good to see you. Everybody in Canada right now is trying to figure out the answer to the question that is right on the front of your campaign literature, and that is, who the heck is Bonnie Critchley?
There's a reason I did it that way. Because I understand I'm a unknown entity, and nobody's heard my name before this, or very, very few have heard my name before this. So I get it, and that's why I wrote it that way.
So you're waking up early, you're making the rounds, you're doing every interview, you're raising, I would imagine, as much funding as you can do, but you don't have a ton of political experience. Is this your first campaign ever?
This is my first campaign ever. It's surprising what the military teaches. I've done diplomatic things. There's a photo somewhere of me speaking with Princess Astrid of Belgium and standing on top of the Canada House and Trafalgar Square, that sort of stuff. I've done all of these things. I've interacted with all sorts of foreign officers, foreign diplomats, foreign troops. This is not my first go. And then when you're dealing with the balance between dealing with the brass and dealing with the troops, it's my first political campaign, but believe it or not, the military actually taught me the skills to do this.
Well, you've been recognized, and there's been some features on you in national papers and national news outlets over the past few weeks describing you as a trailblazer in uniform. That's what the National Post called you. You were 17 years old when you became the second woman ever to serve as an armored crewman in your unit. You and your dad, Steve, later made history as the first father-daughter gunnery crew in the Royal Canadian Armored Corps.
Yes.
You've never been afraid to stick your neck out there, to try something new, to be the first in a space where maybe nobody that looks like you, or nobody that was your age, or nobody that came up like you had done before. That's always the way you've been wired.
Yeah, and that's how we got into this whole political thing to begin with. Is I looked at what was happening when Mr. Keurig stepped down and said, that's not right. Now, I understand when there is a party leader who doesn't have a seat, by-elections happen. But he had a seat. And he lost it. Not only did he lose his seat, he lost a 30-point lead. So for us to have an election and then promptly have to go back to another $2 million by-election because the guy we just voted in, who asked us for a mandate, suddenly turns around and says, no, I don't think so. Vote this guy in instead. It didn't sit right with me. And I'm like, I looked around, said somebody should do something about it. And, well, I've never been one for waiting for someone else to stand up for me, so I stood up.
I would imagine not an easy road to hoe. We call the show Real Talk, and so we're going to make some points here that I think most people would suggest are obvious, but I want to encourage you, and I have encouraged you behind the scenes, to push back if you don't like anything you're hearing. But if we take a look at the most recent election results in Battle River Crowford, I know that you're up to speed on these. Damien Keurig, the independent, who's stepped away, he's resigned to create the opportunity for Pierre Poilievre to run in this Alberta riding, won 53,684 votes for almost 83% of the share. It was one of the biggest wallopings of any riding in Canada. The next closest candidate, the Liberal candidate Brent Sutton, with about 7,500 votes, about 12% of the vote. Now, your name's not even on the list, so you weren't involved in the election. You're stepping up here in the by-election, but I know that that you've got a real challenge ahead of you. So how are you facing it? How are you approaching this campaign?
Well, absolutely, you're right. I wasn't in the initial one because I was quite content with Mr. Keurig. He stepped up. He's the only one of that entire list of candidates who showed up. He comes around, he talks to people, he interacts with the constituency. Brent Sutton, none of those guys did that. And that is very, very important to my neighbors. What I'm hearing now is that all these folks who voted for Damien are mad. My neighbors are choked. They voted for this guy, and he ran away. He abandoned his duty to them and ran away.
Do you think that they're mad enough to vote against the Conservatives for an independent candidate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The numbers lie. Well, they don't lie, right? That's how many conservative-leaning people are in the constituency of Battle River Crowfoot. But when Damien abandoned his duties, suddenly the party loyalty has disappeared.
Some people might not call it abandoning his duties. Some people might say, listen, the leader of the party needs a seat in the House, and somebody's going to have to step up and fall on their sword. Somebody's going to have to do this for the party. What have you been telling people at the doors, or how have you been characterizing it at the doors?
Well, it's not a matter of how I'm characterizing it. He didn't fall on his sword. He fell on a giant bed of pillows. He sold us out. He's got a brand new cushy job. He sold us out. And I'm not the one who's saying that. It's all of our neighbors who are saying that. This is what I'm hearing door to door to door. Yes, we most certainly have our very, very hardcore conservative fans who are like, no, the leader's going to do everything for us. But for the most part, no. People are choked that Keurig sold us out to the angry guy from Ottawa.
Did you consider running or seeking a nomination under another party banner? Did you consider, what was behind the decision to run as an independent? I know that in your campaign literature, you note that this could put you in a really unique position as an independent MP with a minority government to influence swing votes, to have a real significant say for your riding. But why the choice to run as an independent?
Well, two reasons. The first, obviously, I can't run under Conservative banner.
So do you describe, are you a conservative? Like, did you vote for Keurig in the last election?
See, now I'm not going to answer that, and I'm not going to answer that
Kind
for
of a rude question on my part.
That's exactly why I won't answer it, is because I tell people that their vote is their vote. And again, this is where that military leadership comes in. You have to lead by example.
Well, and also you're kind of trying to convince longtime conservative voters to vote against the party they've always voted for. So I can understand why you'd want to preserve that discretion.
But no, it's really is people's vote is people's vote. I'm not going to ask them who they voted for, so I'm not going to answer, because if I'm not expecting them to say it, I'm not going to say it.
Fair.
But the first reason was obviously I can't run under this CPC banner. Secondly, team politics is becoming very, very damaging to the Canadian politiscape. We are not the United States of America. We are not a two-party system. We are very much a multi-party system, and having politicians and teams trying to pull us one way or the other is becoming very damaging. Guys are no longer holding their own politicians to the course, because they're so busy owning the libs or owning the cons. They're not acknowledging that their own politicians are voting against their best interests. Team politics has become a problem. This is not the Stanley Cup. This is not the Calgary Flames cheering for the Florida Panthers.
It's a little too soon for that, Bonnie. It's a little too soon. We're right across the street from the rink.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's team politics is not healthy. It is not good, healthy conversation. You have to hold your own elected officials. You have to hold their feet to the fire, too.
Yeah. In our Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power, Gizmo says Bonnie would be a strong fighter for this riding, and she strikes me as a no BS kind of a person, shoots straight and speaks her mind. Plain Power, earmuffs, kids. People say what they want on this show. So Plain Power says we need more people to be like Bonnie. Fuck parties and represent people. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's a party establishment. You got to work within parties, but I do think there can be room for independents. We're not going to pretend like it's easy for an independent to get elected. It must annoy you, and I'm about to heap on. I'm about to make it even worse.
Carry on.
Does it annoy you when people are talking about your candidacy? They're talking about this by-election, and every question or most of the questions are in the context of Pierre Poilievre. Would you rather people just be talking about you? Like, I want to ask you about his presence in the riding through this campaign. The by-election coming up August 18th.
What presence?
Okay, well, let's go.
What presence?
Are there signs? Take me. I've not been in Battle River Crowfoot.
There's signs. His volunteers or Keurig's volunteers are out there. But no, Monsieur Poilievre himself is down in Calgary stomping for the Prime Minister's job. He doesn't have a seat. He assumes we're just going to give him ours. And that is a we, because I live there. But he is busy in Calgary pretending to be, he wants to run for Prime Minister. Well, no, buddy. Come talk to us first.
So you've got, you're running against a machine, a well-funded, well-organized machine. How are you actually doing it logistically? How's the fundraising been? Talk to us about your volunteers. You got a team here today that's supporting you behind the scenes. What's it been like, putting that together? And what have your supporters been telling you about why they're stepping up to support you?
For some people, it's they dislike Monsieur Poilievre himself. Others, especially in the riding, are feeling very betrayed by Damien, and it runs that whole gamut. As for fundraising, it's coming from across Canada and within the riding, and I'm not about to handicap myself when I'm fighting a machine by accepting from just in the riding. It's a federal. He's had 10 years to build up this war chest. I've had a month.
What's the best way for people to make a donation to your campaign? I know someone's going to ask.
Head to my webpage.
Yeah, your webpage is?
www.bonniecritchleyindependent.com.
You got it.
And there's a donations tab, and that'll get sent off right away. We can
What-
take credit cards, all that sort of fun
What's
stuff.
the experience been like for you? Like this has got to be a new experience. You know, these interviews. I heard you talking to your team. You guys are figuring out your day. You're plotting out your schedule. You're checking. You're following up to see if past interviews have been published yet. I mean, you guys are into one right now. It's got to be a bit of a
Yes.
trip for you.
Yes and no. Again, back to the military experience. I was taught as an armored reconnaissance crewman, patrol commander, how to take in vast amounts of information, how to give out orders to junior call signs, other call signs, my own crew, while still maintaining the straight line we're headed while looking for the bad guys. This is yes, but no.
You served in Afghanistan, yeah?
Yes, I did.
And that's got to be a life-changing experience.
Well, the photo in that video, I was 150 pounds because it was 56 degrees Celsius in the shade.
Jeez. So you've got a situation right now. We were just talking yesterday. I'm not going to drag you into some of the hottest button topics we talk about, although you strike me as you wouldn't be dissuaded from talking about them. You saw these arrests in Quebec, the RCMP laying terrorism charges against 4 individuals, some of them active members of the Canadian Forces. And, you know, a lot of the response that we had in our live chat, people are saying, well, listen, nobody's making excuses for that type of thing, of course. But we started zooming out and talking about what it's like to be a service person in the Canadian Forces today. I know that they've, you know, got recruitment efforts underway. They're doing their best, but the numbers are down with reservists and active members. Supports, quite frankly, are not there in the fashion that people would expect them to be as people return from
I'm going
service.
to interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
Keep your train of thought there. Now, reservists are active members. We
thanks
have
for
reserves and regular force. And reservists train weekly and at least 1 weekend a month, usually 2. But they are active members.
I like that you've got their back, and thanks for the clarification. How would you, as an independent MP, or an MP, period, advocate for the men and women that serve in the forces? What would you bring to the table that you think that an elected representative who has not served would not be able to bring to the table?
An understanding of dealing with veterans affairs. Because the front end is fine. What happens when they retire? I don't know if you watched me limp in here a little stiff. My ankles, my knees, and my hips, and
Well, I
my
figured
back.
it's just early in the morning, buddy.
No, that's damage to my knees, ankles, hips, and back. I'm still dealing with Veterans Affairs for my injuries. And let's see, they just backdated it. I was awarded for my knee, and they backdated it to 22.
Have you seen support from veterans, from active duty members, from fundraising or otherwise? Is that been a theme in the people that have been stepping up to support you?
Some yes, some no. The military, like all groups of people, runs the spectrum. So we have the hardcore conservatives, we have the hardcore liberals, all served, all have different takes on what has happened in the past.
Sure.
And then you've got us in the middle who remember Trudeau Sr., who remember the Harper era, who remember Trudeau Jr. telling a guy on prosthetics that vets were asking for more than the country could afford. Right? It's both sides have neglected. The procurement issues are absolutely nuts. And I do understand procurement, and I understand what's on the back end of the procurement, what the troops get. There is a reason why military guys will hear military grade and run the other way. Because it's the cheapest crap that the government could afford to get away with.
Somebody here, Jay, in our live chat, this is one of the biggest compliments I've ever seen anybody paid on this show. Says Bonnie is like Deborah Gray on steroids. Are you familiar with the Reform Party reference? Deb Gray,
Right.
Think
Yeah,
back
it's
in the glory years,
way back,
the
yeah.
early Reform years. Deborah Gray, Preston Manning, Deborah Gray. I think it was a Honda Goldwing that she like rode a bike around everywhere and was absolutely no nonsense. In our live chat, powered by Park Power, Blah Sheep says, "Hey, Damien Kirk didn't sell anybody out. Polyev needs a seat. Damien will run again, I'm sure." Lightning Rod says, "Nah, it's a sellout." Annie says, "Way to go, Bonnie. You're speaking the truth, not just for Albertans, but also for others across the country who are rooting for you. Do you get that sense? Like, I mean, I said it in my opening comments, but most people, to be quite honest, no disrespect, don't pay a lot of attention to by-elections unless a government's about to fall or unless there's a big high-profile riding at play. In this case, though, it's safe to say that people across Canada are watching to see what happens here and quite frankly, to see how the numbers play out. You get that sense?
Oh, yeah, I get that sense. And as things go, people are watching Monsieur Poilievre's numbers drop. So here we are wondering if he beats me, if he beats me, it won't be by much. Because I am telling you, I'm going door to door. And so many lifelong conservatives are saying, we are mad, we are upset. And I am an acceptable substitute for a conservative party member because my platform does run right of center. Most of my riding is not big C conservative. It's little c conservative. So if he beats me, it won't be by much. How is that going to play out in January? And if he loses that leadership review, is he going to stay as a backbencher MP in a backwater riding? Or is he going to quit and leave us doing this again in January?
We had Max Fawcett on the show, most recent episode yesterday, lead columnist for Canada's National Observer. And we were talking about, we were kind of prognosticating on how this could play out. I never like to throw specific predictions out. Number one, is this audience will tell you because I'm typically wrong. And number two, because I think it does a disservice to people like you, people that are working really hard to turn the tide and to earn the outcome that I know you feel like you deserve to earn. That said,
it's not what I deserve. It's what we deserve. It's Battle River Crowfoot. This is what we deserve. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for my neighbors and our community.
I like that you said that. What was that again? Our what?
Our home, our riding.
Our home, our riding. This is it's not a slick slogan. You weren't going for slick.
I wasn't going for slick. I'm going for truth.
Yeah, this is like somebody who mends her own fences, who throws her own bales around, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Max and I are talking and basically saying, let's be honest, like, most people aren't expecting you to win here. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. I mean, crazier things have happened. Very rarely have crazier things happened, but let's just say
that's fair.
And so we're talking about how, you're swimming against the current. You got a long climb ahead of you. And then Max offers up this, and I want to get your response to it, okay? On the bigger picture potential of this by-election. So here's Max Fawcett in our most recent episode. Check it out. It's an uphill climb, to say the least. I don't think that Pierre Poilievre is at any risk, and I want to respect the voters in that constituency, and obviously they can rally, and maybe crazier things have happened, although that would be one of the craziest all-time upsets in Canadian history. But Poilievre's not at risk of losing that by-election, I don't think. But do you actually think that he could be at risk of seeing his tenure as Conservative leader end before the next federal election?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
And I don't think that. I mean, you're right. I think the odds of Bonnie Critchley actually beating him are
very slim,
very low, very slow. I think the odds of her ending his political career are much higher.
Really?
Because if let's just say he gets 55% of the vote or 60% of the vote, people are going to point out that is 20% less than a backbench MP who had to step aside for him. If he can't do better than Damien Couric in that riding, he is a loser. And that will be the frame that a lot of conservatives look at it through. So if Bonnie Critchley can, get a campaign where she gets 20-25% of the vote, that's ball game for Poilievre, I think. The rumor, it's not going to happen right away, but the whispers are going to start. People are going to start organizing behind the scenes, and he's going to have a real problem on his hands.
That was Max Fawcett yesterday. Your thoughts?
Sorry, I had to giggle at Monsieur Poilievre's death grip on that saddle horn in the Stampede Parade. I got distracted. So he's right. He's absolutely right. Yes, victory for me, or eating enough of his numbers that he's done. It's that simple. But like I said, my fear there is that we're doing this again in January. And we're tired. Everybody is just so tired of this crap. We don't want to do this again. So it's, victory for me is A, actually winning and being able to take a very powerful voice because of the minority government we're currently in. Battle River Crowfoot suddenly has an advantage and we stop getting ignored. Or victory for me is taking a massive chunk out of his numbers. And that is not within the realm of possibility. That will happen. And that's what I'm hearing door to door to door to door.
Real Talk Live Chat powered by Park Power as we talk to Bonnie Critchley in our feature interview this morning, presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Heidi says, Damien Kirk was an MP who lived here, who represented the riding well despite my disagreements with him. And he gave us up for an MP that only wants a seat and doesn't care about this riding at all. Marie says, you got to work for your constituents, not the party. Tara Lynn says, look at Alberta as the perfect example of what Bonnie is saying about team party politics. Disagree and you're out. Annie says, Bonnie's platform is robust, speaks to the real issues in her riding. She's the only one that's actually visited and door knocked already. Les says sometimes it's the independents who can hold the deciding votes. When I think of like rural political issues, and we've got a ton of audience members that join us from outside the big urban centers, and they talk to us all the time. Access to health care, access to family docs is difficult. Obviously, public safety is a huge issue for people living in rural communities. Internet connectivity is another huge one. As if I need to tell you about what all the issues are, but what's a big one? What's a big recurring one that you keep hearing at the doors, maybe that you knew about already, that was on your radar as a resident of this area, and what's something that you would take to Ottawa with a real mandate to turn a trend around or to fix it?
Well, as much as I want to touch healthcare, I can't. It's provincial. I would love to see healthcare.
That's what all the politicians say, Bunny.
I know. Healthcare, I would love to see healthcare go federal. Now, having been military and gone province to province to province, go train in Nova Scotia, go train in Saskatchewan, if you get hurt and you walk in with your Alberta healthcare card, it's a problem. Or when whole families are posted to a new area, they've got all of this stuff to go through. So I have done healthcare province to province to province, and it varies widely, and it's a pain in the backside. So yes, I would love to see healthcare go federal, but I can't touch it right now. It is provincial. However, issues that affect rural areas, biggest one is high cost of living. Now, I don't address high cost of living exactly in my platform because I'm going after the roots of the problem. I am going for things like right to repair, right? If you have a Samsung or an LG or whatever brand washer, dishwasher, dryer, stove, you can only get them fixed by certified technicians. Well, if you live 2 hours from the nearest major center, where are you going to get that? The companies certainly aren't going to ship you the parts you need.
I feel like you're adjusting the examples that you use in that story for an urban audience. Isn't it mostly tractors and farm equipment that people really care about on right to repair?
Both.
Yeah, really? Both?
Both. Well, here's the thing.
Because I know that farmers get, my relatives, my cousins are really pissed off about this.
Yes, both. I hadn't quite got to the tractor example yet. We have both urban and rural within Battle River Crowfoot.
Yeah, for sure you do.
We have both, so I have to look at both. So, yes, I started with the urban example, but yes, tractors, you beat me to it. You have certain brands of tractors that can be bricked by the manufacturer because of the computers.
Yep.
If you don't pay your subscription or pay for your updates or do all of this. And that starts leading to, again, this is what starts mounting for our food producers for higher costs, which means food costs more. So right to repair is a high cost of living way to adjust that. And interestingly enough, if we get into deeper trade ties with the UK and the EU, I do believe they have right to repair legislation on the books already. So this would bring us more into sync with them.
You see this green square here?
Yeah, I
That's
see that.
Les. He's just kicked $2 into our super chat. We say anytime somebody contributes to our YouTube super chat, they're buying you a beer.
Okay.
So on your way out, you make sure you hit that beer fridge there. We got a nice selection.
I got to check. Is it American beer though?
No, what do you think?
It better not be.
What do you think?
I just
Come on,
gotta check.
Come on.
Just gotta check. Come on. I spent a lot of time in Belgium
It's
and
not
Germany.
it's
I
not
can't have American beer. Okay.
It's not American, but we're sorry it's so cold. In closing, I want to ask you this before we let you go. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about Alberta separation, Alberta sovereignty. You, again, on your website, BonnieCritchleyIndependent.com, will link to her site in the show notes on the podcast and on YouTube. You put Alberta separation as literally the very first note, the very first subheading on your platform, and you describe it as a non-starter. Are you taking a risk politically? I have to ask you the question in this way, forgive me. But are you taking a risk politically in this riding by taking such a strong stance on Alberta sovereignty?
Probably not, because those who would be wanting Alberta separation aren't going to be likely to vote for me anyways. But the point is for me to stand up and be very honest what I believe in. Now, the terms I'm using is I am here to be a voice for Battle River Crowfoot, but which means that I am going to bring up the issues my neighbors come up with. But that one is an absolute non-starter for me. I've buried far too many friends under a Canadian flag to ever buy that. And that's not even addressing the treaties, the ethics, the legalities, the economics. It's not feasible. We'd be a landlocked province that would suddenly lose access to all deep water ports completely and have to renegotiate everything.
What's your assessment in closing of the job that Prime Minister Mark Carney has been doing out of the gates to this point?
So wait and see. He is a progressive conservative in a liberal shirt. His policies tend to actually sit more center right. So it's wait and see. Thus far, he's doing pretty good. But I do expect to have to hold him accountable for a few things.
Like what? What would be one thing, if you had one question that you could lob at Mark Carney right now, what would it be?
I love the extra defense spending. Where's the money coming from? Right? And this is why I take issue with Mr. Poilievre refusing to get a security clearance. How can he hold Mark Carney accountable if Mr. Poilievre doesn't know what he doesn't know? Because he's not going to have access to this information. Gag order or not, how can he make decisions without all the information?
Pardon me while I shamelessly plug our own show for a
Yeah,
second. If people want to know exactly where that additional $50 billion in defense spending is going to come from, or what it's going to look like as the Liberals try to find those funds, you can check out our episode from the 7th of July with economist Todd Hirsch, where he talks about Canada cutting deeper, taxing harder, and borrowing more as everybody gets a pit in their stomach. Bonnie, it's been wonderful welcoming you to studio. I want to say that, you've got your critics, of course, because Poilievre has his supporters in our chat, and you've also got a whole bunch of people that are really cheering you on. Like I said, we're all going to be watching with great interest to see what goes down on the 18th of August, this by-election, and we wish you well the rest of the way. People can check out BonnieCritchleyIndependent.com to learn more about you, to find out who the heck is Bonnie Critchley, to make a donation, and of course to show their support in other ways. Thanks for making the trip into Edmonton to join us in the historic Mercer Warehouse downtown.
I love old buildings. This is fantastic.
It was the very first thing you said when you walked in. You were looking at the timbers. You were looking at the brick. My kind of person. I liked it. People are talking, describing you as no nonsense, salt of the earth. I would imagine that that's exactly what you're going for, and probably not the first time you've heard it. Thanks,
Pretty
Bonnie.
much.
All right. All the best. Safe journey home.
Thanks.
That's Bonnie Critchley, the independent that's gunning for Pierre Poilievre in that by-election coming up on the 18th of August. We're going to press pause for a quick second, and Jeff Davison's going to join us. He wants to be the next mayor of Calgary. He's served on that council. He's run before, and now he's back with a plan. He says Calgary's got to turn around its downtown, and he's got a plan in place to make that happen. These conversations happen here on Real Talk with the support of amazing partners like our friends at Friesen Brothers. In 16 different Alberta communities, Friesen Brothers has you covered. Whether you're picking up groceries to fill your fridge for your family, maybe you're entertaining guests at a barbecue over the weekend, you could basically pop into a Friesen Brothers, and depending on the amount of work you want to do or not do, if you're me, you want to pick up the grab-and-go options like their warm potato salad, their roasted root vegetables, beautiful homemade mashed potatoes, all the work's done for you, and then you stop by the butcher. That's at least what I do. Let them know how many you're cooking for, exactly how much you're looking to spend, and boy, oh boy, will they hook you up with beautiful Alberta proteins, chicken, pork, steak, even bison, at your local Friesen Brothers, Alberta grown, Alberta owned for 70 years. All right, so you've picked up your protein, but now you're realizing you need a barbecue. When was the last time you upgraded your grill? When was the last time you popped into an independent shop staffed by people that are passionate about the art of grilling? When's the last time you treated yourself? Russell and Brian and their team at You Need a Barbecue in Sherwood Park would love to see you. I first connected with these guys based on one of their barbecue classes. This was so much fun. Went with some friends, learned from top pit masters, and of course, well, basically rekindled our interest in the art of grilling. If you're looking for a barbecue or seasoning, spices, sauces, they've got you covered. If you pick up a bottle of Yonita's barbecue sauce at You Need a Barbecue this week, they're going to hook you up with 2 tickets to K-Days. That's only at You Need a Barbecue out in Sherwood Park. Shout out to all the golfers that are out at the ranch today. This is Alberta's top tournament course. This is the top public course in Alberta, and of course the home of the Real Talk Golf Classic, as you know. The best value public golf course in the Metro Edmonton region, and that's according to the Score. That's not just me telling you how much I love this place. You can book your tee times online at theranchgolf.com, and if you're in charge of a tournament for your nonprofit group, your charity, your organization, your company, get in touch with the Ranch. Let them know that Real Talk sent you. They'll take care of you like you wouldn't believe. That's been our experience at theranchgolf.com. And our friends at California Closets of Canada, proudly family-owned, proudly Canadian-owned and operated, want to remind you that the consultation with their designers is always free. You can learn about their approach. You can price out the different visions that you have in store for that special room in your home. Maybe you're looking to make the most out of a second bedroom doubling as a home office. Maybe you're resolving to finally get that laundry room figured out. Maybe you're like us. It's a big entertainment center you're looking at where you can get the family together in a scenario, a setting that basically adds value to your home and adds value to your experience in your home. It's all guaranteed for life. And again, it starts with that free design consultation online today at californiaclosets.com. I want to shout out Matthew for his $5 contribution as well via the YouTube Super Chat. He says, make it 2 beers for Bonnie. Of course, she did have her team with her here, this team of volunteers that made the trip in with her this morning from Toefield, Alberta, to join us in studio. So we'll hope that they all grabbed a cold one and they can maybe go chill out in our green room, in our cool down lounge after this interview as we transition from federal to municipal politics. All across our home province, we're going to see an election in October, the 20th of October, that could result in some pretty dramatic reinventions of city councils, including down in Calgary, where you're getting the sense that really no seat is safe. Jeff Davison has served the constituents in Calgary as a city councilor in past. He's had his name on the ballot as a mayoral candidate, ultimately losing to Jyoti Gondek. Jeremy Farkas finished second in that race. Some familiar names. He's been serving as the CEO of the Prostate Cancer Center down in Calgary, and he wants to be Calgary's next mayor. We're grateful he's made time to join us on Real Talk. Jeff, welcome to the show. It's nice to see your face. Looks like we might have a frozen feed there. The good news is the feed froze on a very handsome image of Jeff. So he's looking very good as he's there. We're going to get that sorted out, and we'll be checking in with Jeff Davison in just a moment. He's described Calgary, and in particular Calgary voters, as mad at the horrible decision-making and inability to work together that they've been seeing at City Hall. Let's find out how he plans to change that. It's mayoral candidate Jeff Davison joining us on the show. Jeff, I want to thank you for making time for us, and welcome to Real Talk.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not your first time throwing your hat in the ring down at City Hall, having served as a councillor, having run as mayor before. What strikes you as different about either the landscape at City Hall these days or the mayoral race this time around in 2025?
I think the issues are totally different this time. I mean, I think 3.5 years ago, nobody thought here's where we would be. And I think overwhelmingly, we've just seen a lack of trust built with the public here in Calgary, whether that's blanket rezoning or bag bylaws or all kinds of things happening within the city. City just failed to build trust here. And so having seen this movie before, you kind of have a good idea of what to expect going into it and how to plan a little bit differently. And for me, it's really about planning a safe place of opportunity for everybody.
I mean, at least in your initial platform, your website, the comments that you've been making to media, you're really honing in on Calgarians' sense of safety, Calgarians' sense of function or dysfunction in public spaces. Why is that so prominent for you? Is it based on personal experience? Is it based on polling? Take us into where your head's at and why.
I've had the privilege of talking to thousands of Calgarians over the past year and just talking about what matters to them. I mean, number one, affordability is a huge problem for a lot of Calgarians, and I think we're feeling that across the country. And number two is public safety. People simply don't feel safe going downtown. They don't feel safe on our LRT system. They don't feel safe in their own communities. They're seeing gang violence, gun violence, all sorts of disorder happening across the city. Even the police are frustrated with it. And so, I think we have to admit to ourselves, whatever we've been trying isn't working, and it's time for a new plan that puts public safety first.
How do you do that? Where do you start?
Look, I'll tell you this much. It's not a unique issue here in Calgary. I think just about every municipality across this country is going through all kinds of social disorder and trying to figure out the path forward. I've spent the last 3.5 years working in healthcare and changing the dynamic of men's health across the province. And so maybe that gives me a different perspective on partnerships, right? I think when we think about Calgary, there's roughly 3,000 unhoused people on the streets here. The vast majority, like 96% of the crime, is committed by about 180 of them. So that tells me we have a crime issue and we have a police issue that we can deal with there. We do need more police in Calgary. We have one of the lowest officer to citizen ratios per capita of any major city across Canada. And so that tells me we need to do better with our police. But it's also about healthcare, right? I mean, when you think about the addiction side, the mental health side of what's going on in our cores, we need a better partnership with our province. We need to come together, find the common ground and say, how can we win this together? And I think Calgary, honestly, we've been great at leading the world on many things. I think this is something that we can't wait for somebody else to figure out. We have to start coming up with solutions.
You pointed out in a recent release, your team pointing out that the Economist's 2025 ranking of the world's most livable cities wasn't kind to Calgary, or at least not as kind as it has been in past. Calgary described or ranked as the 5th most livable city, previously plummeting, says your release, to 18th place. Now, people would point out that living in the 18th best place on planet Earth still isn't the worst. But you say Calgary is in trouble. As the eyes of Canada and the eyes of the world are currently on the greatest outdoor show on Earth, as Calgary welcomes the world, quite literally, to the Calgary Stampede, as we're talking, where would you say that visitors and residents might see signs that Calgary's in trouble, and where would you start to hit those?
I think we do a great job when it comes to the Calgary Stampede of just sort of hiding the issues and making sure that hospitality is our number one priority. I mean, tourism in Calgary is a big factor of what we want to be doing going forward, and we want to show who we are to the world and why Calgary is the place to be. But that said, I think, when you have a fall from 5th to 18th place of the most livable cities, in fact, The Economist noted it was the largest plummet of any of the cities That's a challenge. That tells me that we've seen drastic change, and not for the better, over a short period of time. And to me, we have a city council that doesn't seem to want to address those things. I mean, you look at our issues last year with running water, for instance. Not one city councilor stood up and said, "What's the permanent fix? How long will it take? And what's the cost?" I mean, they're just not connecting the dots. And so for me, they've let a lot of the little things help contribute to why we've gone from 5th to 18th place in the most livable world.
You ran, as mentioned, for mayor back in 2021, secured about 13% of the vote. How would you say that your campaign has evolved? How is your strategy different this time around? And how are you most different from, I'd like to be honest with you, Jeff, I'm not 100% sure that there's a favorite in this race in Calgary or in Edmonton. Like, to be honest with you, both of Alberta's most populated cities, both of Alberta's so-called major cities, my sense is that mayor's race is wide open. Do you get the same sense?
Well, like I said before, I certainly didn't think we'd be here 3.5 years ago. I'd sort of moved on with my life. But I will tell you that spending the last 3.5 years working in healthcare and working for a charity has given you a different perspective. And I think, when you look back, it's about what did you do with the time you had, right? I mean, you didn't have to be, or I didn't have to be an elected official to continue to give back to community and move the needle forward on something I care deeply about, which is men's health. Coming back into it now, are the issues different? Yes. Are the players different? Yes. But the interesting thing that we've seen here in Calgary is, only one time in our history have we ever unseated an incumbent mayor. So that will be a challenge, and we have to, we've got to play the game knowing that. But I think, it's really, we're starting to see it coming down to the same 1, 2, 3 as the last time. And I think, quite frankly, people have made up their minds right now whether or not they're voting for Jyoti Gondek or not. I mean, she's had 3.5 years or more to prove to them that she's capable of doing the job, and she's just not. When you ask most Calgarians, I think she's failed to lead. She's failed to grow our city. She's failed to manage the issues in our city. And so I think, largely in part, again, people have made up their minds about her. I think it's going to come down to, whether or not, people look to myself or Jeremy Farkas in the next race. I mean, that was sort of the 1, 2, 3 of last time. And to me, it's going to come down to, look, what did you do with your time? I mean, some of us have kind of moved on, led the city through other matters, have proven partnerships with, both local entities and provincial entities and grown programming. It's going to come down to leadership and experience. That's what people are going to look for in the next election.
Rezoning, blanket rezoning has been an issue. I think a lot of people are like leveling up their understanding of it or researching it because it's becoming more and more relevant in streets and neighborhoods. In many different cities, including Calgary. It strikes me blanket rezoning seems to have been kind of a repeated criticism or a recurring criticism of the current council. What exactly would you change about it, and what would the new process look like?
So I think I'm the only candidate in Calgary who's committed 100% repealing that bylaw. I think it's a terrible way to build. I mean, we were told this was about affordability. We were told this was about density, and it really doesn't achieve either of the two things. When you have the average row house in Calgary starting at $780,000, that's not affordable. When you're building 4 units at a time to keep up with the growth we're seeing in Calgary, which is about 70,000 people a year, that's not achieving growth and density. So, to me, it's about continuing to build tax base. So looking at even some of the work I did as a former city councilor. Can we build new districts within existing districts? Can we look at how we tie up larger plots of land within existing communities and build density into those where the density makes sense? But it's also about managing new community growth as well, where we're seeing a large amount of people who are coming to Calgary wanting to buy houses. So to me, it's really about balance. But we have to think about the large scale, right? You have to think about building thousands of units at a time, not 4 units at a time.
Jeff, I'll reference the Calgary Herald's reporting on this. This is Scott Strasser, the journalist, who let their readers know that construction of this Green Line is back on track. The intention for this train that I think more people have heard about from politicians in the last year or so than anywhere else, as the province has stepped in on this. And I think that the Green Line almost served as a metaphor of the relationship between the provincial government and a lot of these municipalities, but now on track to be operational by 2031, which for those keeping track is 5 years later than the original targeted opening date. What has the Green Line project, I want to call it a debacle, but I want to come across as somewhat objective. What has the Green Line project taught you about city oversight on big infrastructure projects, on the relationship between the city of Calgary or municipalities in the province and otherwise?
You know, Green Line is a great example of a project that was just a failure to build partnership, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you go back, we've been talking about Green Line for 10 years in this city. I mean, the federal government came out here at some point and announced the same $1.5 billion into the project, I think 3 times over the last 10 years. The reality is, you know, you've got to pick a lane, right? And you've got to start moving on a project. But it takes leadership. And I think that's the one thing that I've seen City Council fail on, is that nobody has put their hand up and said, I'm going to lead this. And, you know, far too often politicians feel like it's somebody else's job. We get to go and say, hey, here's the initiative and here's what we want to do. And isn't this fun? But at the end of the day, if you want the project to succeed, you have to get involved. You have to be managing that project. And that's what I talked about earlier in terms of leadership and experience. You need people who are capable of getting deals done. You need people who are capable of making partnerships if you want to see large scale infrastructure projects like this. And this is the largest infrastructure project we've ever seen in the city of Calgary. You know, leadership plays a key role. And when you fail to build partnerships on a project of this size and scope, your partners are going to get angry. And I think that's exactly what happened with the province. They felt like they were left in the dark. They felt like nobody was bringing them along as a partner. And then, you know, 10 years later, they felt like nothing was getting done. And so they made a move to, you know, try and address the project differently. My job is to come in there and say, look, I've always been a proponent of Green Line. I think we need better transit in Calgary, but it's time to put some leadership to the task here and manage this project through to success.
You've labeled the current Calgary Council as elitist and entitled. How would you approach leadership differently?
Well, I mean, listen to the people, right? I mean, I think, you know, when, you know, we go back in history and some of the things I mentioned earlier, when you talk about the blanket rezoning, when 85% of people show up and say, please don't do this, and council doesn't listen to them, that's a problem. When you put in a bag bylaw and people say, don't do this, and you do it anyway, that's a problem. We're just seeing recurring issues in Calgary that have really just been about the fact that we just don't listen to people. And so, you know, like I say, for the last year, I've been out talking to people, getting their perspective on what they want to see. And overwhelmingly, I've heard this narrative that we've got to get back to core basics in our city before we continue to move forward. We can't be everything to everyone. You know, at the time now, we've got 40% of our roads are in failing condition. Our water is unstable. I mean, you know, for a city like Calgary that does want to continue to manage growth, and again, 70,000 people a year choosing to move here, we've got to get our priorities in check. And I think that's what I'm hearing overwhelmingly from Calgarians. And that's what I'm going to put into plan for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my mind around what it's, and we're seeing like similar growth in the capital city. Obviously, the province of Alberta is seeing a population influx like I don't think that people have ever seen before here in Alberta, at least not in the last number of decades. But it's wild if you wrap your mind around the population of a province potentially doubling over 25 or 30 years. But if you're adding a Red Deer to Calgary every single year, obviously, I think that you can forecast issues when it comes to housing, despite the fact that there may be bullish builders, infrastructure strain, schools. I mean, just the practical, the practical factors of accommodating so many people. What's an area where you think that the current council or where decision makers have been underestimating the impact that this population growth is having, and how would you approach it in an intuitive or evidence-based fashion?
I think the biggest thing is the failure to manage growth through development, right? I mean, on average right now, it's taking years to get a permit for a building. That's got to stop. I mean, you can't manage growth by throttling off the market. And so for me, it's about looking at how do we develop our city differently. And, you know, Edmonton, much like Calgary, we have such qualified builders. We've got qualified engineering teams. We've got qualified drafters. We've got people who know what they're doing. And quite frankly, they're the experts on how we're going to build the city, not the city itself. And so our job is to set up better policy that moves development faster. And honestly, like I'm looking at ideas where we can move development permits in 30 days for, large scale developers who qualify. And then we'll work on an audit system so that we go back and make sure that they did what they said they were going to do. But the only way to manage this type of growth right now is to actually get building faster. And I think that's where City Council has really failed. I think there was a lot of hope when they came in that 3.5 years ago, the process would change. We would get to development faster. And overwhelmingly, we've just seen that get worse and worse and worse over the past 3 years.
You've promised to freeze property taxes for 4 years at 2025 levels, which obviously folks that are paying property taxes will love. And I would imagine those that are paying attention to how budgets seem to go and how costs seem to go up, and you're looking at a growing city and they're going, how can he possibly make that happen? Now, you're going to say, of course, you'll find efficiencies, you'll spend smarter, but what would be an example of where you could find efficiencies, or how would you plan to freeze taxes for 4 years? That's a big deal if you can actually do it.
Well, I think it's totally doable. And again, having the experience of being on the inside and now on the outside. I mean, look, like I'm running a healthcare charity now, right? I deal with donor dollars every single day. And we've got to make those donor dollars go to the furthest extent to create the best outcomes for patients we can possibly think of. We've got to start approaching our tax dollars that way. We've got to start doing better with less. And so, a property tax freeze is a start on how do we look at reprioritizing our budget? How do we look at making our money work for us? And one of the biggest things in a property tax freeze isn't just looking at not continuing to erode the tax base we have, but also putting together a plan to continue to grow tax base so that we offset that freeze as well. But it is about reprioritizing. And I think the city of Calgary has gotten into a lot of areas where, quite frankly, they can't tell me what the outcomes are. And when you can't tell people what the outcomes are and you can't show citizens where their money's going, we have to have a look at those programs and say, are they right for Calgarians? Like, I'm all for trying things. Right? I want to invest in things. I want to move our city forward. But at a point where we have to say certain things aren't working, we need to be able to pivot. And I haven't seen that pivot come from the city council at all.
Jeff, before we thank you for your time, I have to ask you about Calgary's new arena project. I'm not sure if you knew, but I'm a born and raised Calgarian, so I remember the day the Saddle Dome opened, and there have obviously it's been an iconic venue, but I know that there's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of excitement in Calgary around that new arena district, that new entertainment district opening up. That doesn't mean that everybody believes that the city got the best possible deal. You, in your previous iteration on council, served as chair of council's Event Center Assessment Committee, which spearheaded essentially that previous arena deal with the Flames ownership group in 2019, the one that did not materialize, the one that quite frankly collapsed. Your thoughts on the current deal? I would imagine maybe you've chilled out a little bit, but was there a bee in your bonnet at some point? Did that piss you off, how it all played out? Where's your head at today?
Look, like number one, I think, go back to what I just said. We've got to continue to build tax base. And one of our biggest opportunities on building tax base is to develop in the downtown core. So, first and foremost, I believe we need this new event center. I believe it's key to the entertainment and cultural district. I believe it plays now well with our Tier 1 convention center and all the other cool things that we're doing in downtown Calgary. But it's a terrible deal for citizens, right? I mean, when we go back and remember, like, my deal was a signed deal. It didn't collapse. It got canceled, right? It was a signed deal that got all of our money back. And so the city of Calgary was going to put in $287 million. And in 7 years, we got all of that back because we got 2.2% of the ticket tax in the deal. So, when I look at this deal where we've more than doubled the cost, where we're now having to see provincial money come in, where citizens don't necessarily get a benefit of getting money back, which was going to be money that would be directly invested back into that district. Is it a good deal? No, I think it's a terrible deal. I think that's just another example of how city council fails to negotiate deals because they just frankly don't know what they're doing, nor do they have the experience to be there. But is the new event center a key asset for Calgary and how we're going to continue to develop our downtown? Absolutely. Absolutely.
How are municipal parties affecting this vote as far as you can tell? You're running independently, correct?
Yeah.
Did you consider putting a party together? Were you approached by a political party? How do you see that landscape being affected? This is the first municipal election. I know I don't have to tell you, the first municipal election that Albertans have ever seen this structure.
I think, again, when you listen to Calgarians, and the vast majority of people have said parties do not make sense in this city, that's why I chose to run independently. And I'll tell you, like, for my experience, whether it's in healthcare now or 20 years in energy and technology, I've never needed a party at the boardroom table to get things done. And quite frankly, I don't think it works in our favor. I mean, you want diversified opinions on city council. You want those opinions because that's how we innovate. That's how we get creative. That's how we find new solutions. And when everybody thinks the same, and when everybody's just a yes person on city council to the mayor, that doesn't benefit citizens in any way. And so to me, I don't think the parties are going to work out. I don't think that's what citizens have asked for. And I quite frankly think you've seen a number of these parties, both in Calgary and Edmonton, start to have a lot of infighting going on. And that tells you if they can't, get it straight with their own party, how are they going to represent Calgarians as one? So to me, it's, I'm all for independence at municipal levels, and I hope we keep it that way for the long time.
Yeah, I would just like, just because you asked for my opinion, I would say that I haven't noticed, like, I mean, I know that, like, from a fundraising standpoint, it makes a difference. And from an organizing standpoint, it probably makes a difference where you can apply brand assets, as an example, to different wards or different constituencies. But I wouldn't say that I've seen, like, at this point, and maybe it's too early to throw this out there, but I wouldn't say that I've seen the parties have this like huge machine effect where they're just crushing all of the other independent candidates. It's definitely not been the case in Edmonton, and from what I can see in Calgary, it doesn't seem to be the case either.
I give a simple analogy to people when it comes to the party system. Just because you create new capacity to fundraise doesn't mean the folks that are funding those campaigns have any other checks to write, right? It's kind of like, being a restaurant owner and doubling your capacity. It doesn't mean you're going to double your occupancy. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think, parties were a great idea. I think they were rolled out way too late. And now I think they're behind the eight ball. And again, listen to what citizens are saying. I think that's the biggest failure of politicians these days. They fail to listen. And when citizens say this is not right for us, the timing is off. So why do it?
Jeff Davison, former councillor, now wants to be Calgary's mayor. Joining us right here on Real Talk as our coverage of Alberta's municipal election continues. You can learn more about Jeff's platform, find out ways to get involved by checking out JeffDavisonYYC.com. We'll link to that in the show notes. Jeff, we thank you for your availability, and we wish you best of luck the rest of the way.
Hey, thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah, you got it. We've spoken with Jeremy Farkas previously. We spoke to Jody Gondek, the incumbent, just a short time ago. And we will continue to pick the brains of, the serious candidates in Alberta's biggest cities, as well as focusing on some of these rural ridings as well that could prove to be really interesting. But here's where we put it out to you, Real Talkers. If you're living in a community, if you're in a jurisdiction where you're seeing some really interesting things happen, you think that what's happening in your town, in your city deserves more coverage here on this show. If there's an issue you'd really like to see us sink our teeth into, or you have thoughts on an interview that you've already heard here on the show, we're always eager to hear from you and appreciative of those of you that take the time to send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. You can also leave a comment on our YouTube episodes. And Johnny, we're paying closer and closer attention as Spotify continues to level up their offerings to the comments that people have been leaving on our Spotify episodes as well. I want to thank people for that. Appreciate, again, also the reminder that you can also watch Real Talk in high definition on Spotify, if that's where you're getting your podcast. Shout out to those of you on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and all the other platforms as well. Before we get any further, I want to get into the Real Talk live chat. I want to get your thoughts on Calgary. I want to get your thoughts on Bonnie Critchley. I really enjoyed that interview with Bonnie, by the way. I don't know about you. Just a real no-nonsense type of person. But first, of course, it is Wednesday. Every week, courtesy of our friends at Tourism Jasper, we step back out of the news cycle. We step away from those divisive stories or the stressful stuff, and we just remind you about the memories that lie in wait in Canada's crown jewel. That is Jasper National Park. It's My Jasper Memories, proudly presented by our friends at Tourism Jasper. And this week, we thought that we'd focus on a rain or shine kind of angle. Now, that doesn't mean that this weekend it's going to be raining nonstop in Jasper. As a matter of fact, I just looked at the forecast, kind of a mix of sun and cloud, but here's the point. When you're out in Jasper National Park, weather almost doesn't matter. It's not to say that the most beautiful Bluebird Day isn't going to increase your enjoyment of maybe a trip down the Athabasca River on a raft, or maybe a beautiful hike, maybe just under the footprint of the Jasper Tramway. Wherever it is that you're headed, the beautiful days are beautiful, more beautiful in Jasper, but the rainy day activities are just as fulfilling. So we thought that we'd give you some of our top rainy day activities in Jasper. You don't want to let a little drizzle dampen your Jasper adventure. So number one, the no-brainer, what about a spa visit? There's nothing like a spa visit at the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge. This is easily one of the most beautiful spas in Western Canada. I can tell you, I've got some personal experience at this spa. I personally recommend the 90-minute hot stone treatment. That's my personal favorite. My wife, Carrie, likes to go with her own favorites. That could be a facial. That could be other spa treatments that you'll only find at the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge, and you can make your bookings directly on their website. Another amazing drizzly day activity in Jasper, the planetarium. I know that not a lot of people may be aware of the Jasper Planetarium, but this is an incredible way to see our universe through an entirely different lens. They've got wonderful opportunities led by talented storytellers that'll allow visitors of all ages, from the little guys all the way up to grandma and grandpa, to marvel at the beauty of the universe, accentuated, of course, by that Jasper sky. Now, of course, there's rafting on the Athabasca River, and this is one of our favorite Jasper activities, rain or shine. You're probably going to get a little splashed anyway if you're out on one of these guided tours. And so I would just say we've rafted in rain before, we've rafted in sun before, and on some of those mornings, we've seen a little bit of both. Our little guys will never forget watching an osprey fishing, diving down into the water and coming up as a light rain fell. It is a morning that we'll never forget. And I would encourage you to check that out with Jasper Raft Tours as well. There's the Maligne Lake Boat Cruise, which is also fantastic, rain or shine. There's nothing quite like this experience. You leave relatively early in the morning. You can see just that the mist coming off that water. Maligne Lake has a special serenity to it. You're probably going to see some people out there canoeing. You're probably going to see some kayaks. And on that Maligne Lake boat cruise, you'll be transported with a guide who will be giving you incredible facts along the way about the significance of this area of the park, ultimately winding up at the iconic Spirit Island, where you'll have a chance to step off the boat, walk around a little bit, not on the island itself, but walk around a little bit and take in one of the most magnificent views in Canada. Highly recommend that Maligne Lake boat cruise. There's also Jasper food tours. They're able to accommodate all different types of weather, all different kinds of tastes, an opportunity to check out the Jasper's innovative culinary scene in a landscape, in a setting that you will never forget. The Jasper Food Tours, you can learn more about them on the Tourism Jasper website. That's jasper.travel. We'll link to it in the show notes. Of course, if you're also spending time in the town of Jasper, and I encourage everybody to get out there this summer, support these business owners, support these residents that are opening their doors with open arms, ready to welcome tourists from across the country and around the world. The shopping opportunities, the culinary opportunities that they've got there, including a couple of brand new restaurants, plus the institutions that everybody knows and loves. The Jasper Art Gallery, also home to almost 40 local and regional artists who create images and artworks designed to capture imaginations, evoke images of the environment, the majestic Rocky Mountains. Do not miss the art gallery experience there. And then, of course, you can also rent a cabin for the family. They call Jasper Cabin Country. This is Canada's cabin capital. That's Jasper, Alberta. Play games, relax by the fireplace. What a perfect way to experience that downtime as a family. Of course, the live theater shows as well. We highly recommend those. The Jasper's theater scene, honestly, one of the most fun experiences you could possibly have in this mountain town. The Jasper Theater Productions, their theater shows are incredible, including From Jasper with Love, which we've recommended to you before. From Jasper with Love. You can learn more on that at jaspertheater.ca. As you can see, and also, by the way, if you need a little help with your kids, you can also discover the drop-in play and childcare at Cubs Play Cafe. This is such a great option when it comes to rainy day activities. They've got interactive play zones. They've got healthy snacks, flexible drop-in hours. It's easy to make a stress-free visit. Whether you need a few hours of care, maybe a break, a fun outing, Cubs Play Cafe is the perfect place for kids to explore and parents to unwind. You can learn more about all of these, our big list of drizzly day, rainy day activities in Jasper National Park by visiting their website. That's jasper.travel. Don't forget, from now until September 2nd, right up to the Labor Day weekend, Parks Canada is offering free admission to all travelers, plus 25% off camping fees at participating locations. It's a great offer. It's making Jasper even more affordable. Again, all the details at jasper.travel. My Jasper Memories is proudly presented by our friends at Tourism Jasper weekly, right here on Real Talk. We've got that like strumming, like the acoustic guitar playing, and we're talking about spa treatments and food tours. And I'm thinking that it's about time that you and I hit the road and got our butts out to Jasper National Park, Johnny Infamous.
Yeah, I was just out there, though.
Feels like about time. You were out there working a wedding, weren't you?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. You're wearing your Jays jersey today.
Yeah,
how about this?
10 in a row. Let's
Canada's
go.
team, buddy, atop the AL East. What a performance by the Toronto Blue Jays.
They're just killing it right now. If they win tonight, they tie the team's record all
Phenomenal.
time, 11
All time.
wins. 2 more wins, and it's a team record. So, yeah, I broke this out. Hey, look at this.
I saw the back. Infamous DJ, the customized Jays jersey. Was that a gift from the team, or did you actually pay real money
no,
for
this
that?
is a gift from my partner, actually. But I played a couple Jays events. You know, I'm from Ontario as well, so got to get the custom.
I love that. Hey, I wanted to shout out Ken K as well. Ken, we saw your $10 kick into the Super Chat on the YouTube episode, and we just wanted to let you know how much we appreciate that. I think he said make it 2 beers, sending Bonnie Critchley and her team out with a few cold ones as they go enjoy a morning in the capital city, in Alberta's capital city. What did you make of that interview? She comes across.
Great.
She's obviously, and she would say this herself, I think, she doesn't come across as like the most polished, refined, slick politician, but I think that that's the beauty of her entire campaign.
Well, I like the cut of her jib. She sounds like where she's from.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know what it's like living there. I assume most people have kind of the same demeanor and the same skip in their step as she does. But we're talking about someone who served their country. We're talking about someone who loves where they live, even if it's a place with a small population. And, you know, I think it's funny. I just, no matter if you lean left or right, like this is like Bonnie versus PP is like, it's like the Florida Panthers versus the San Jose Sharks. It's ridiculous. It's like, are you telling me if Justin Trudeau or Mark Carney or, you know, hypothetically, any one of the guys that if you're on the right, you hate on the left or who is a liberal or you dislike or just can't stand. If Trudeau or Carney or anyone lost their seat, if Trudeau lost his seat in an election and wanted to remain the leader, so he went to some suburb in Quebec where he knew he was going to get 100% of the vote to win. Are you telling me conservatives wouldn't be screaming at the top of the mountains, screaming from the rafters how ridiculous it was, how shameful it was, how, you know, it's basically bullying. I mean, what's happening here? This is a place that Bonnie loves. This is a place where Bonnie voted for someone who she believed in, and now she's.
We assume we don't know. We don't know who she. I actually liked her
She said
position.
she voted for Damien, and that
she didn't.
I'm pretty sure she said we voted him in.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
in my mind, that says she voted.
You know what?
for him.
She
also said he'd been doing a good job.
When I asked her, who did you vote for last election? I almost kind of, in my own brain, I was like, what are you doing? Like, I don't typically ask people that question. I think it's actually kind of a rude question. But at the same time, I think it's relevant here. Like, if she voted conservative, which I'm pretty sure she didn't confirm on the show. She said she didn't want to tell us who she voted for, but she definitely said the riding voted for him. But I thought, wouldn't that be interesting if she did vote for him and then she's running against the guy that's stepping in here, obviously, because she feels like the people in that riding have been disrespected, right? Heidi said the same thing in the live chat. She says, we voted for Damien. Heidi said, I didn't think he was doing a bad job, even though I didn't agree with him on everything. She says, but now the entire riding is being disrespected.
Yeah, she did decline to answer, but when she said we voted him in and he's doing a good job,
Yeah.
in my mind, like that's showing your cards that you most likely voted for this person.
Yeah.
And you know, he didn't get kicked out, but I mean, people are saying he stepped down. Give me a break. I mean, a PR team came into an office and said, "Hey, buddy, this is what's happening." That nobody steps. Do you think Damien could have said no to this?
Well, yeah. But
come on.
here's what I think happens. I think that, and this is my speculation. This is prognostication. This has nothing to do with any sort of hot tip or brown envelope that we've received. I think that he knows that he is in a very safe riding. Like we said, what was it, 82.8% of the vote or 83% of the vote last time around. Like stomped the competition in the most recent election. He's a young guy, Couric is. He's got a long political career ahead of him, I'm sure, if that's what he chooses. I think that most people believe, especially with the Liberals having a minority government, that this probably won't go 4 years, that there'll probably be another federal election in the next couple of years at the latest, at which point Poilievre will seek to return to either the riding he was in or another riding more appropriate to his home in Ontario. Couric will come back into this riding, win it again. In the meantime, he's been named, he's got a plum job, as he should. Of course, everyone's going to hook him up. That goes without saying. You remember we've had conservative MLAs step aside for Conservative Party leaders in past in the province of Alberta. It happens all over the place and it happens everywhere. And obviously, this person steps into a job. Who knows what they're making? I would guess somewhere between $200,000 and $350,000 annually at this plum temporary post. And then the next election, they step right back into the riding, now with the favor of the party leader to whom you did a big favor. And then now, if Pierre Poilievre forms government, maybe you find Damien Couric as a parliamentary secretary. Maybe he's a minister in a Poilievre government. I think politically and strategically, there's a lot of reasons why Couric would do it. I would say the biggest reason to not do it, I don't know that anybody, maybe you just absolutely love being an MP and you're going to miss it for a couple of years. I think the biggest risk is the risk that we saw in the live chat, which is constituents like Heidi in that riding, people like Bonnie who live in that riding saying, we voted for you, and you threw that away and made a decision based on your own career or what's best for your party, right? What's best for your party's leader, as opposed to what's best for the people of Battle River Crowfoot. I think that's the biggest risk that he takes. But again, when you're winning 82% of the vote, you can afford to take some risks. I'm not trying to insult the voters there, but when 4 out of 5 people have your back, you can afford to lose a few votes here or there to boost your own career. You know what I mean? We wanted to touch on a couple of things. It was not lost on me that Bonnie made a joke about Pierre Poilievre riding the horse in the Stampede Parade. And I just thought, as she said that, I thought, gosh, no politician is safe at the Calgary Stampede. If you're a conservative leader, a federal conservative leader, and you're white knuckling the horn on the saddle, like Bonnie was kind of grinding his gears about as Pierre Poilievre rode in the Stampede Parade. If you're a Liberal prime minister flipping pancakes, obviously that can prove to be problematic, as Conservatives have turned out in droves to poke fun at the prime minister's pancake flipping mishap, which, by the way, I didn't think it was all that bad. But I thought that it was worth pointing out on the show today. I'm not sure if you saw this from Alberta Conservative MP Shannon Stubbs. Her post on X, formerly known as Twitter, she attaches the video of the prime minister doing his best to flip pancakes. Flipping pancakes ain't easy, friends. And she says, "Welcome to Alberta, Prime Minister. Quick note for you. Flipping pancakes can be hard, especially since you admitted you don't buy your own groceries." She says, "But I thought you would have been better at it since you're so good at flip-flopping on everything." Now, I do have to say, I appreciate the, like I said in my tweet yesterday, served up on a silver spatula, the opportunity for a little wordplay, flip-flopping. How could MP Stubbs resist the opportunity to poke fun at the Prime Minister for flubbing the pancake flop, to get the little jab in that he doesn't buy his groceries, to point out that he's flip-flopped on the Elbows Up campaign, if that's how you'd characterize it. But I also couldn't help but remember the pizza incident on the campaign trail ahead of this most recent federal election, during that election campaign where Pierre Poilievre was in the pizza shop, the big Forno oven behind him. You remember this video. He's got his son with him. It's this wonderful father-son moment. And of course, the cameras are rolling as Pierre Poilievre and his son are building this little pepperoni and cheese pizza. And then as it comes time to put the pizza into the Forno oven, what happens? Oh, Mr. Poilievre drops the pizza. And the toppings go everywhere, and he screws up the dough. And, like, honestly, who cares? I don't care. I'd probably do the exact same thing. But in so many ways, as Mark Carney flubbed the pancake flop, how quickly conservatives, or at least Carney's most ardent critics, forget that Mr. Poilievre did the exact same thing with a pizza like a month before. Do either of these scenarios have any relevance to the qualifications or capabilities of these politicians to administer what we've asked them to administer? Of course not. But my question is, do the short-term plays, do the little jabs, whether it's pizza or how somebody rides a horse or how somebody flips a pancake, do they serve to chip away at the target of those jabs, or do you think it actually reflects worse on the people that are administering them? Like, does Shannon Stubbs end up looking a little bit foolish for continuing to participate in these little jabs based on pancake flipping as opposed to hitting Mark Carney up on maybe some of the policy differences they may have? What do you make of all of it?
I don't care about food in elections. I think all of this is silly. I'm a horrible cook, but I'm good at other things. You know, I can't flip a pancake. I can't, I wanted to be a chef at one time, so that tells you.
I think you'd be a good chef
for some things, but I've tried. Have you ever tried to do the pizza, like the whole throwing it in?
Dude, I'd be terrible. I'd be absolutely terrible.
I think this is all. It's just ridiculousness. You know what I think is ridiculous in general? All of them flipping pancakes at Stampede. I think it's a ridiculous exercise that they all get out there and they have to flip I don't understand. I mean, I get it. I get the history of it, but I just don't understand why this is such an important moment for every politician. And everyone seems to get just under the microscope for it. I don't see what doing the awesome pancake flip earns you if you do it. But I do know that you're just under the microscope the whole time, and also under the microscope while you're doing it is your outfit.
Yeah.
The fit of your cowboy hat.
You can't wear cowboy hats backwards.
You know,
we see politicians wearing the cowboy hats backwards at Stampede. That's a tough one too.
It seems to be a big thing. Like you have to come out and be perfect at Stampede for some reason.
Yeah, or not, or just be the least drunk person in the room.
Yeah, and I love Alberta, but this is why I avoid Stampede. It seems to be a very like a judgmental activity event.
It for sure is.
Down there, yeah.
I asked people on Twitter what they thought about this. I said the Pierre Poilievre pizza flop wasn't that long ago, right? I said I can appreciate the flip-flop wordplay served up on a silver spatula, but I suspect petty jabs like this one land with a thud with the public. So I wanted to get to what people had to say about it. Mavart says the batter does look a bit thin. Like they didn't give Carney a fair shot. He had thin pancake batter. Kathy, Equus Sports Therapy, says, I can't flip a pancake or cut a watermelon to save my life. She says, luckily, his job is prime minister. Football fan says, people don't all think like you, Ryan. Thank God. Yeah, football fans obsessed with the pancake flipping, I guess. Tracy says, my favorite part after he dropped the one pancake he mourned, he took accountability for a bad pancake. No fakeness from Carney. There you go. John says the jabs over the pancakes is not classy. Matt the Framer says, I want my prime minister to lead, not flip pancakes, but to each their own. Emily says, Jespo telling it like it is. Shannon goes, womp, womp. JD says, this is on brand, pathetic for Poilievre. Once an attack dog, always an attack dog. Maybe worry about your seat that got flipped, Pierre. There you go, from JD. RD Travis says, who hasn't broke a pancake? Says, I cooked in a breakfast restaurant. I still break the occasional one. McFly Girl says, the fact that people are critiquing pancake flipping tells us all we need to know about the direction politics have taken. The childish attacks of anything and everything are a full display of how pathetic these people are, even more pathetic when it's coming from elected officials. That from McFly Girl. So there you go. You got a few more days left of Stampede. I would imagine all the pancake flipping photo ops are all but said and done, but you can let us know what you think about this to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We've also got an interesting development on a story that we've been following. We don't spend a ton of time on the nuances, the minutia of city councils, but this has been a vote that has obviously gained prominence since a pretty high-profile interaction between two councillors at Edmonton City Hall, those being councillors Joanne Wright and Sarah Hamilton. This around the maximum number of units. This is a zoning issue for a mid-block lot. Now, some councillors have been fighting to keep that maximum number of units for a lot in the middle of a block at 8, an 8-plex, while others have been fighting to have it go down to 6, including Tim Cartmel. Now, you remember this vote got pushed. It got extended past what councillors had been told by the city clerk was going to be the schedule for this vote. That's kind of been a trademark of this council, relatively inefficient, prolonging events, prolonging votes, debates, and discussions much longer than they were budgeted for. Well, the council voted, finally. And here's how it played out. You remember Tim Cartmel said he would not be there. He would not be available. He had vacation plans he could not change. Keith Gerine, in covering this, the journalist points out the Edmonton City Council voting 6-5 in favor of Mayor Amarjeet Sohi's motion to keep the maximum number of units for a mid-block lot at 8 rather than going down to 6. Says Gerine, and he's not wrong, had Councillor Cartmel shown up to the meeting, he would have changed the result to get the 6 that he wanted. So Cartmel's not there. Do we have that video that Tim Cartmel released? This was pushed out on his Instagram. This was him ahead of that vote. This was after, the what do you want to call it? The disagreement. After the fireworks launched in Edmonton City Hall, Cartmel and Sarah Hamilton both saying they had family plans that they could not change. They would not be there. And here's how Cartmel, I want to say weaponized it. Here's how he presented it in the context of his run for mayor.
So you've seen frustration boil over at City Council. Well, this is what's going on. We have these public hearings where people come with their changes to their properties they own that they want to do something different on. They need a rezoning. They need a decision. They need instruction from City Council. But this council has been so bad at managing its agendas that the work has piled up and piled up and piled up. And now here we are near the end of the term with all of this work to grind through. And still, some of my council colleagues think that there's no end to the amount of time available to do these things. It's simply wrong. And frustrations are boiling over. Mayor Sohi tried to lay this at administration's feet. It's not administration's fault that we have this buildup. It is council's, because council can't get through the work, because people are not coming to a meeting prepared to make a decision and move on. They are not prepared to give direct, clear advice to administration, to provide a direction and get on to the next thing, the next meeting. Frustration is boiling over. It's been 4 years, and there's still some people that I currently work with that still do not get it. We are governance. We are here to make decisions, to provide leadership and get on with the work. And this passive-aggressive, condescending, sanctimonious language that you hear from some of my colleagues, this holier than thou, where they actually defeat the motions that are being made that serves to provide the things that you want to see provided, and take a victory lap because they've put some counselor in their place instead of listening to the people and listening to the background and listening to what is behind those motions. We know this is wrong. You know what you got to do on October 20th. You got to vote for somebody else. You know the person you don't want. We're giving you the person that you do want. Vote for us, October 20th. It will be better. I promise you that.
All right. So Tim Cartmel, all kinds of fired up, obviously. In our live chat powered by Park Power, Edmonton 2000 says he's clearly frustrated. Meantime, Matthew says Cartmel's missed like 59 meetings this term, over 250 individual votes. Talk about being bad at managing an agenda. Plain Power says, show up to work, Tim. Justin wonders, did he film that after he was filled in on what he missed while he was at Stampede events instead of at council? Emily says, when you don't even show up, I don't think your opinion holds much weight. You and I were kind of debating this yesterday over text once we left for the day, talking about whether or not this was good or bad for Cartmel. Could this be utilized by Cartmel in a scenario where he says, like in that video where he points out and says, listen, council is what did he say? Passive aggressive, sanctimonious, holier than thou. I mean, basically describing an absolutely dysfunctional situation, criticizing directly and indirectly throughout that video the leadership of Mayor Amarjeet Sohi on this. So you can you can utilize this as a campaign tool, right? Where you sit there and you say, look what's happening around you. Look at how this all broke down and went sideways. We're going to change this. It's time to basically flush the lever on this council and start fresh. But on the flip side, and I'm not convinced that this is good for Cartmel, right? Real Talker Steph wrote into the show and she said, this is not good for Tim. She was referencing Keith Jerine's tweet, pointing out that 6-5 result on the vote. Steph says, not good for Tim. He blamed legal. He blames council, which he's a part of, and he's doubling down on going on vacation. And at the end of the day, she says he could have stopped 8 plexes. And for people in the neighborhoods, like we heard from Travis Watt, the Real Talker that joined us about a week and a half ago on the show talking about infill, and for the countless others that have reached out since with comments on and off the record, we see your emails to talk@ryanjesperson.com. A lot of people are going to say, listen, regardless of whether you had to interrupt your vacation plan, regardless of whether or not it impacted you, regardless of whether or not you can get along with your fellow colleagues or if this council is functioning properly or not, your vote could have stopped 8 plexes and it didn't. And I can see him being held accountable at the doors for that. So it's an interesting strategic play. I'll be curious to see how it plays out. Edmonton 2000 says, to his credit, he may have good reason to not attend. Votes that he views are a waste of time. Yeah, maybe, but that's a tough sell at the door. Emily says, council did this because I wasn't there. That's not a great look. I wonder what our attendance records would look like if we were elected representatives on council. You the type that would be there for every single vote, do you think?
I'd try to be. If I was getting paid that much money, I'd sit in a nice air-conditioned room.
Yeah.
Point of order. I'm on vacation. I'll call you back.
Dave says, avoid facing the issue so you can use it in the election. If he solved the issue now, he can't use it later. Like, Dave, I see your point. And part of me wants to believe that that could be an effective strategy. But I also think that you can say, look what we stopped from happening. Look what almost happened. Look what we stopped from happening. And we're going to turn the page and start fresh after October 20th if we're elected. Let us know what you think on this to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We do want to remind you that these conversations happen on Real Talk with the incredible support of partners like our friends at North Road Investment Council. This is a team, an incredible team that recognizes that, folks' schedules differ during the summer. And if you're like me, summer might be a time where, you're taking more time to pause and reflect on your career and retirement goals, right? You're outside with the family, spending time with your kids or your grandkids, and you're going, gosh, we want to make sure that we're on the right track to have this type of enjoyment with our loved ones without having to worry about the sustainability of it, right? At North Road Investment Council, they're working with successful Canadians who've done just that, built successful careers. Now they want to ensure that their wealth is being organized to deliver a successful retirement. And so their typical client has about $2 million in investable assets coming from an analytical or detail-driven profession, engineering, architecture, dentistry. If that sounds like you, the team at North Road is interested and open to a conversation. You can check out their website, visit northroadic.com, and start a conversation built on clarity, discipline, and true alignment. That's North Road Investment Council at northroadic.com. If you're at the stage of your career where you're just getting set to get started, you're seeing opportunity in a vibrant job market, but you want to make sure that you're bringing as much to the table as you can, Athabasca University could be a perfect fit for you. As Canada's open university, they offer world-class accredited online degrees and courses designed so you can complete your education whenever and wherever it works for you. Open your options with the online offerings at Athabasca University, where more than 92% of alumni say they're working in a job related to their field of study. More than 9 in 10 are doing exactly what they hope to do when they enrolled at AU. How great is that? You can get that AU journey started today by visiting their website, athabascau.ca. And we're very excited to be on the precipice. We're on the precipice of sharing in a wonderful announcement by our friends at UCAN Youth Services. They've just purchased a beautiful building downtown, and they're getting set to double the supports that they're offering to young people that right now are in harm's way, but desire to be on a path of economic independence. UCAN accomplishes that through several different programs led by some of the most incredible people you've ever met in your life. Their relentless outreach work, their Verto pre-employment project, the Road to Work program that allows young people an opportunity age 18 to 24 to get into the workforce, specifically the trades. You can learn more about UCAN's programs, volunteer opportunities, even how to make a donation and support the amazing work that this team is doing by visiting their website. That's online at ucan.ca. Ms. Katie, thank you for your YouTube channel membership. Ms. Katie says, my condo I sold 2 years ago was a 10-unit building in the middle of the block with houses on both sides of it. She says there were no issues. She says living inner city means diversity. Get over it. This is an issue, obviously, that people are talking about across the country, but it's not been as much of an issue in some of the cities, like, Vancouver, Toronto, others, because either, number one, it's always been that way. Neighborhood dynamics have always kind of been different based on how the zoning bylaws have been structured since inception. Also, based on the fact in Alberta, and in particular in Edmonton, people are kind of describing it as a bit of a Wild West type scenario with real estate. So things are changing. They're happening fast. That means that the makeup, the aesthetic, the population of neighborhoods is changing. And for some folks, obviously, change represents something you may characterize as discomfort. We want to hear your perspective on this, like we just did from Ms. KD. She says it wasn't a big deal. If it is a big deal in your neck of the woods, or if you'd like to present a different angle on that, you can always get in touch with the show. That's talk@ryanjesperson.com. We've got 2 more shows coming up this week in which we will tackle the top news headlines of the day and, of course, pave the way, clear that platform for you to have your say. Thanks in advance to those of you that share these episodes with someone you know that might be interested in hearing from Bonnie Critchley running against Pierre Poilievre, in hearing from Jeff Davison, who wants to be the next mayor of Calgary. Don't forget, as this show grows, so does our appreciation for you in helping us get there. We'll talk to you again next episode.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.